Right, welcome. This is the Living Library, and I'm here with my very good friend Randy Hyden. And I was just speaking to him before starting this recording and realized this is probably the third Living Library conversation that I've had with Randy. And Randy has also participated in the Natural Law and Regenerative Economy series. So Randy's put a lot of time into this Living Library. And I'd like to remind anybody watching that if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank, you can receive credit for the hour that you're watching this conversation between Randy and myself. So just remember to log in and mark this as a service provided. You are providing this service, and it's under presentations and workshops. And just make sure you put Living Library in the notation there. So we were talking last week, Randy and I, about the business models of getting his program out, of helping people understand also what I'm doing here with the Living Library and the Time Bank. So before we begin, I'm going to preface what you're about to see here as someone, myself, I have a lot of tools and I've done a lot of work on myself, but, I still have an issue with being overly critical of myself. I do still have, I do still struggle with depression a little bit. So we're going to role model for you today how myself, I would come to someone like Randy about, okay, how do I get started in this program? So based on the business model Randy created with his program, it's $297, to be able to enroll in this program. And I'm going to ask anybody watching here today that if what you see here inspires you, and if you want to see me continue on this path with Randy, please, we're looking for sponsors. If one person wants to put up the $297, that's great. If we want to do it in a way where it's kind of broken up and you invest what you can when you can, that's wonderful. I'll also use this as a side note as well too, that this is also benefiting Randy as well, because to be in the time bank, to be a participant in the time bank, and Randy is a time bank member, it's completely free. So you can engage and interact with people, exchange services, exchange energy completely for free. If you want to be involved in the financial management portion of that, that's $25, for an annual membership. And after that, you can invest what you want when you want. And the Regenerative Economy series, the program that I offered over the last couple of months, which is completely free on roadcounselor.com, which is the Natural Law and Regenerative Economy series, that's completely free to help you understand how the finances are managed, to help everybody generate universal basic income and hopefully seven figures within 2 years. So Randy is participating in that, and now I'm participating, with Randy in what he has to offer. So Randy, I'm coming to you saying, look, I'm interested in enrolling in your program. I'm doing my best right now to raise the funds to be able to participate in it. Walk me through it. What do I do first?
Well, usually I just ask a person, what brings you my way? What's concerning you today? Would you like to talk about something?
Yeah, yeah. What's concerning me is that I've been I've been in the professional world pretty much all my life, and honestly, Randy, I'm just tired of convincing people that I have worth. I'm tired of being in this environment where it doesn't seem the expectations are so high that I just never seem good enough. And it's led me down some pretty dark paths. I again, like I said, I have tools to help me cope, to help me build awareness, but I struggle with it. I struggle with people seeing me as a threat and as being in competition, and that makes me depressed sometimes. So that's what's on my heart and my mind at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sorry you feel that because I know you well enough. You are not in competition. You are a man who wants to collaborate with people, making the world a better place. Maybe it might be good to begin with you mentioned that you have some tools in place. Would you like to share what tools you're using that are working for you?
Yes. I do follow a structure when it comes to collaboration with people. The first tool that I use is, what we do here in the Living Library, which is really just an appreciation conversation where, we ask questions, we expect hard questions, and they're welcome. And it's not so much about debating or trying to prove a point. It's really just listening for, what resonates, what is it about, what this person is going through that I relate to, that I identify with, and that I appreciate. So so that's been the tool that's really kind of helped me to kind of survive. If I'm going to be honest, I'm not thriving in the material world, but yeah, that is a tool. These conversations, like what we're demonstrating and role modeling here today, has been a very powerful tool that has helped me generate a lot of good energy. So yeah, so that's my tool is just conversation like this, where it's just about asking questions and finding the gold and finding, what we appreciate and resonate in each other.
Yeah. So if I hear you correctly, one of the things that helps you is being able to connect with people in a very authentic way. And does that mean that it helps you realize you're not alone, or how is this specifically helping you?
Yeah, how it's specifically helping me is that I think it really does create a good energy where people really do want to work with me. People really do want to be on this journey with me. And I think what you said is accurate. It does feel like I'm not as alone. And yeah, what's coming up for me at the moment is, this feeling of loneliness that, I keep telling myself this story and I keep having these judgments that, because, financially, or in public success, I don't know if I'm moving forward or not. But yeah, I really tend to gravitate towards what I feel is real. And what is real for me is connection. I call that self-actualization. I think there's a difference between self-image actualization and self-actualization. And I tend to continue towards self-actualization, and sometimes that leads to a lonely place, because I want to believe that people I want to believe that people value that. I want to believe that people would put their money behind something like that as well too. Um, but yeah, that's what I value is that connectedness, and I just feel like you know the real world or the material world is not yet reflecting what I know is valuable, that I know to be true.
So you just mentioned the real world. So well, I'll take two steps back. So you
Yeah.
talked about self-actualization, and maybe a good thing before I go. I felt like holding on to the real world
Mm.
comment. Probably I should slow down and go back to your definition of self-actualization.
Mhm.
Could you please help me out? If I was to come with you and say, Mike, what is self-actualization to you? Could you please
Yeah.
explain?
Yeah. Deep honesty, especially with self. Um, to me, what comes with self-actualization is uh, being present to even even the feelings that we don't want to feel, like fear and anger and shame and sadness. Um, yeah, what self-actualization means to me is really authentically doing what we call the shadow work, which is, looking at the things that people are afraid to look at, things like corruption, things like like coercion, coercion, things like power struggle. And to me, that's what self-actualization is that we don't bypass that. We don't ignore that. We don't pretend it doesn't exist. We look squarely at it and say, hey, how can I how can I keep myself accountable for the times where I've done things that I'm not necessarily proud of. With the work I've done in bullying, I've really had to take an honest look. And this is, I think, also part of 12-step programs as well too, is taking accountability for you know for you know for for the times where the shadow sometimes gets you, and that's part of being human. So yeah, I think that's what it is. Is that I'm personally struggling in my relationships where I feel like others are not wanting to look at that or not wanting to take accountability for their own shadow. And that's where I often feel alone because I'm looking at really deep shadow stuff a lot of the time.
So how does this integrate with when the comment of you made earlier about the real world?
Yeah, yeah. With the real world, and I've used this terminology uh, quite often, and I think it sometimes repels people. But to me, what I think of as the real world, the world of competition, the world of extraction, it's just it's about who can command or who can take the most amount of time, energy, and attention. And I'm just not about that. I really believe everybody can win. I truly believe everybody has value. I truly believe everybody is a piece of the puzzle, and we just need to fit the puzzle pieces together. We don't have to jam a round hole into a square peg. And I feel like because I believe that, and because I believe that with my entire being, I believe that with my entire soul. Um, I feel like others judge me in thinking that I'm not realistic, that that's not the real world. The real world is about dog eat dog, is about competition. It's about extracting what you can. And yeah, yeah, that's what comes up for me around that real world
Okay.
iteration.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you've spent time to really go into your inner world. And for those who are listening, what I understand shadow work being is allowing the stuff that we've pushed down. We don't want to be exposed to this, which is typically socially unacceptable behavior.
Yeah.
Again, the things we don't want to feel is like, when were we not in alignment with the person that we prefer to see ourselves as? I value honesty. When was there times when I was dishonest and such? And when I face that, it's really uncomfortable. So basically, it it goes to some place that is not presence in state of mind. So you're not in your head. Okay, so there. But again, when you're talking about the real world, you're talking about people that are, I don't know, don't know how they are operating underneath the covers and such, but their actions speak loudly enough that they can ignore that stuff that has been repressed. So there's this challenge that's going on as you know who you are and you know the benefits of doing that hard, difficult work. And the benefit, what I heard you saying, is understanding that there's an innate value, there's worth to every human being, and that we're all here to contribute and make the world place and really collaborate, not to compete and not to, again, it's not about taking, but what we can give. Have I heard you correctly?
Yeah, yeah, that very much resonates. Yes.
Yeah. And these people in the real world, though, they're in a position where they can just dismiss that, again, that rigorous honesty. They're in a position that they can go on and continuing extracting, manipulating, um, objectifying human beings in a way to get, I'm a Machiavellian way, whatever it takes to get what I want. And in typically that's in the disregard for the most beautiful thing about a human being, their essence, their being. There's something that is frankly beyond my language, but if you've ever been a parent and looked at a child in your arms and such, and you just know this is the most precious thing in the world, and what's that child done other than just breathe? And their heartbeats, that's their value. And so, and of course, all of us are just big kids. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, we are. We are. It's easy to
we're,
forget that
we're
same
kids
side feeling.
trying to be adults. And that trying to be adults is those again, these people in the real world and stuff, they've adopted a worldview and identity that is the dog eat dog, um, do unto others before they do unto you kind of things. Am I hearing you right? Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way quite a bit.
Yeah. And it feels perhaps that again, maybe I'll start over again. So when you're presenting yourself full frontal nudity, total vulnerability, here I am, and this is what I believe, and this to my again my essence, my being and stuff. This is my truth, and people are dismissing that and basically saying, I don't care what anyone else says. My way is the right way, and you can go find the highway now. Is that that's the sting?
Yeah, it does feel that way, especially when I've been at my most vulnerable in the last couple of months. There's been moments where I have expressed uh, rage, and that made others in the room not feel safe. I had confessed at one point of entertaining suicidal thoughts, and the people in the room kind of pushed me aside and kind of took offense to it, and they're still they're still trying to they're still they're being confrontational behind my back, and I felt like whenever I'm that vulnerable and I'm that honest, that that seems to marginalize, that seems to push people away, and it does feel very lonely.
Yes, I, I can feel that. I've gone through similar occurrences, and for myself, it was because again, value of connection. You've connected with a deeper part of yourself. I'll use the word soul, and then when you bring forth into the world your soul, for it to be, I don't know, dismissed, disregarded, yeah, it's almost like your essence. Again, I'll speak for myself, I should say. My essence isn't worthy of being appreciated.
Yeah,
And there,
especially when you're being vulnerable, and especially when you're letting the raw emotion come out. That's where, in my experience, I feel like I feel like personally, I feel like I've made quantum leaps forward, but I feel in helping people to understand new ways or easier ways of being able to kind of change the leadership structure. That's when I find myself more alone, is when I go to that place of vulnerability, even though personally, emotionally, in my connections with people who are kind of in this, coming into this awareness, I feel like that those friendships are really starting to gel. But I feel like where there's artificiality that exists, or it's more about self-image actualization in those circles, then that's where um, I feel like my life has been devalued.
yeah, yeah, I really, I do, I do. So perhaps what the challenge, and may I make a suggestion?
Of course,
So perhaps what is challenging here is really it's rejection from people that you want connection from. Am I interpreting that here?
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And for myself, rejection, again, as I expressed earlier, again, feeling that I'm just not worthy of being accept it. Again, and value it. Again, there is a difference between fitting in and belonging. You're an
Mhm.
actor. You can put on, I'm sure, an act to fit in with the crowd if you were to choose. But to really truly belong, that only happens with a vulnerability. Otherwise, again, how can we can you're accepting this caricature of myself, this I don't know, this chameleon, the shapeshifter that I've done and stuff. And again, there's no authenticity there. Um, and again, it might scratch an itch for a while, but eventually it's so I don't know empty. It doesn't. Again, what I was longing for again is that sense of belonging to be accepted and such. And the reason for myself was because I had not been accepted when I was younger.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
never felt safe around my parents confiding in my feelings.
Yeah.
Um, Teachers, and again, when it appears when you talk about bullying, I was bullied when I was first grade, second grade. Eventually, after second grade, they had to move me to a different school because I was getting into fights every day.
Mm.
And most of the time, I was not winning those fights and such. So I am looking back, I am sure that again, my parents and my because I was so young, it was kind of invincible. I just I wouldn't allow people to treat me that way. And I don't. Again, it's so distant and so there. I just know essentially the feeling of what it means to the loneliness, to feel that I'm against everyone in the world. There's no safe place. And then I've read books and such that describe it. Only like an abandonment wound.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have you gone through a personal life experience where you feel like you didn't have safety and that you might have been abandoned by those that you needed safety from?
Absolutely, yes. This story has come up, quite a bit in the last couple of years as I've been participating in groups where authenticity and vulnerability, is encouraged. But yeah, there was a time, I think I was probably about 6 or 7 years old, where it was a snow day, and I played with some of the neighborhood boys, and they were older than me, and they were very friendly to me. They treated me like a little brother, and I was accepted. Then the next day on the bus, when I tried to sit with them and try to continue, that friendship, they were very cold, stone faced, and when I tried to sit with three of them on the bus driver had to come back and say, "Mike, you got to move. There's only three to a seat." And I kept saying, no, these guys are my buddies. They're my friends. I can be here. And one of them just looked at me and said, "No, get out," is what they said to me. "No, get out." And it was kind of like there was all this happiness that I experienced the day before. And then the next day, I just felt like, "Oh, okay, I can't trust people who are older than me. I can't trust other males. I can't trust, I can't trust, I can't trust that." And yeah, that felt like a big, deep abandonment wound, that I had experienced. So there was a shell, kind of like a shell of protection, where yeah, it's kind of like I wasn't worth it. I wasn't, my and that happened when I was a child. So it's kind of like that feeling that my inner child was not worth it. Was not worth being given the time of day. And yeah, and then kind of like that authority figure of the bus driver coming back and shaming me for wanting to have that belonging, kind of created a feeling of I can't trust authority. So and that, wow, that manifested in big ways throughout my life about being not trusting authority.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you said big time later on in your life, so it kept on reaffirming those thoughts and the emotions that are intertwined with them. That was reaffirmed repeatedly through your life.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But was there an occurrence in your life where you had a moment to reconsider those things, those memories
Hmm. Hmm. Oh
to.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, just being able to look at it and kind of uproot it. I mean, I'm sure there I could probably go deeper and find deeper core memories, but just having the spaces where I'm allowed to unpack that, where I'm allowed to, to be able to go back there and having safe, sacred containers where I can, you know, do the anger work, I can do the sadness work. I mean that happens a lot. It hasn't been happening as much recently because I keep finding myself in the role of the facilitator. But yeah, especially in the last, especially maybe 5 years and prior, I've been in a lot of spaces where I've been allowed to express my emotions, acting. Being involved in acting. I was an acting teacher for 20 years as well too. I mean, that was where I felt affirmed because I could let out this raw emotion and it was considered an asset. It wasn't considered a liability. So to be that real and to be able to let that out, it was considered good, competent acting. So I kind of found my salvation and I kind of found an outlet in drama, in art, in acting work. And after a while, again, that whole business competition thing kind of reared its head again. Where to me, being in acting or being involved in drama was never about the business anymore. I couldn't care less about about making money or doing it for a living. I got the cathartic experiences. I got the self healing. I was given opportunities, or in many cases I gave myself opportunities to really do the deep work through the drama. So yeah, so to answer your questions, the places and the times and the spaces where I felt affirmed and I challenged those stories and I was able to create more of a sense of worth was doing the acting work, was doing the drama work.
Glad you've had those. So I would presume though you started in acting though not as a means for healing. It was something that you began for another reason. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of energy. I had a lot of pent up energy. For a few years, I found an expression of that through martial arts. And then after a while, I became disenchanted with the competitiveness in martial arts. So I channeled that competitiveness at first in acting and where it was acceptable to be larger than life. But yeah, it was there was a competitive drive where I didn't want to compete physically anymore. I wanted to compete with something I felt I had a little more control over, and that was creating characters, being able to create.
Yeah. Yeah.
Comedy.
So
I found a lot in comedy too.
yeah, that's something I'd like to get into in a moment. But it's when you're talking, I am curious when you talk about the competitiveness of acting, was that the competitive of getting in the role? Is that what you're
Mhm.
referring to?
Yeah, yeah, mostly in the roles, and at times when I became a director, I felt like there were other directors that were competing with me and didn't want to see me succeed because if my work did well, it would kind of raise the bar of the company's work. So, but yeah, no, there was a lot of competitiveness.
Yeah, yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong though, when again you are applying yourself into your art though, this is another way of you again, you're putting your soul into this. Even though there is a caricature, there is certainly has for it to be good art, there has to be a part of you that's put out there for the world to see. And you're nodding your head. Okay. So
Yeah,
perhaps that was another occurrence when you did what we talked about earlier. Is like you were bringing forth Michael's essence, and it was not received in a way that was, I don't know, the best word to say it is, it was not necessarily welcomed. Sometimes you scared people. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, I was definitely seen as a threat in many different environments. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I know, again, reflecting on my own personal experiences, a lot of times it had very little to do with me when people were feeling threatened. I'm showing up as authentically as I can, and sure, I guess I could kind of be a bull in the china shop at times, trying to navigate communication and relationships and such. But again, I'm not doing anything other than just being me. And when people feel that, yeah, me striving to do my best threatens them, kind of stuff. You know, we can basically, we've just touched a raw nerve and they're being defensive. They're being hyper vigilant and stuff. But you're nodding your head. You've seen that really probably being more true than
Hmm.
false. Again, there's a lot of assumptions here, but you know,
Yeah.
I know this just because of myself. When people threaten me with their ability to do things that I aspire to, that they can do it at a greater level of expertise, and all of a sudden, I'm just kind of like, gosh, will I ever be good enough? Would you say that's been your observations as well?
Yeah, yeah, to a certain extent. I really I feel like I've done a lot of work where I understand that if I see something in someone where I feel like they're very competent or they are very good at what they do, I've learned that that's a reflection, that's a reflection of me as well. So I don't I've been doing a lot of good work, I think, around taking accountability for any kind of jealousies or any kind of feelings of inadequacy in that case. I mean, I don't really aspire to be anybody else, or I don't aspire to what anybody else has or does. I guess I'm just really feeling the loneliness and the sadness of being completely myself, and having that be a reason for people to not engage with me or not want to be in that energy.
Okay. Well, what I'm proposing here is it possible that though these people that are not accepting you, they are going through their moments of seeing something in you that they aspire to, but they're not just not capable at this moment to be. And therefore, they're just, I don't know, what if you've kind of triggered the nerve of insecurities? Is that a
Mm.
possibility?
I think it is a strong possibility. I recognize in myself that I don't entertain that possibility. I think again because that goes back to the little boy who was kind of rejected and I guess not really believing that I could be that kind of person that would that would trigger that in people. But yeah, but that is a very strong possibility, and I'm starting to entertain that a little bit more. But it's hard to see that in myself. It's hard to see that I guess it's very hard to see that that I the possibility that I could be something that people might want to aspire to, and that's hard for me to accept for some reason.
Okay. Well, frankly, I see characteristics of your ability to make me feel so comfortable. It is so easy for me to be myself, to be vulnerable around you, Mike. And I aspire to have more of that in myself. Um, so there are attributes, without me turning into the Mike Shoeman fan club. Again, there are so many things about you that I see that are worthy of aspiring towards. And of course, I can't speak for anyone else, but it is a possibility that what you're doing is you're consciously or subconsciously reminding these people that of areas themselves that they've neglected. You
Mm,
know, um, I have this hypothesis when people get drunk and such that's lowering their inhibitions, and basically what's in them comes out. Perhaps the happy drunk. Okay, that may have been a person. Yeah, if they just for whatever reason they would be this nature if they didn't have that social lubricant of the booze and such. And the angry drunk, same type of thing, and so on and type of thing. Um, that my point of sharing this with you and with the listeners and such is there are parts of us that have been repressed that for whatever reason, and again, the little bit that I do understand of shadow work again is we've seen this as socially unacceptable for some reason. Using that again, that the happy drunk, that person that was just the life of the party. Somewhere along the line, they were probably that way, and usually in childhood, or there's times when we were there, and it was not acceptable. Maybe they were the class clown, and next thing you know, they were punished for being the class clown. It's like what? What again? This of course is so hypothetical and so general and such, but I hope the listener can hear this. Is again, there are parts of us that we've repressed that actually can be positive attributes. My understanding of Jung's shadow work, which again, if somebody hasn't listened to again, my understanding is Jung is the one who originated this part of us that has been repressed because of our conclusion this is socially unacceptable. This does not fall in line with what we have concluded is appropriate behavior for the world. Okay. It's not necessarily, it's always things that are harmful for ourselves. Again, he called it the golden shadow. And these are attributes about ourselves. Perhaps when we stood up for ourselves
Mhm.
and whether it was a parent authority figure and stuff pushed us right back down. Don't you dare talk back to me kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because yeah, what was being imposed upon us was not appropriate at that time or whatever it
Mhm.
may be. Just all of a sudden, maybe and again, maybe if it was standing up for the kid who was being bullied, and the next thing you know, again, you got hauled into the principal's office and punished as well too. Mind your own business kind of thing. And again, these are all things I'm imagining, but I'm hoping somebody's listening to this can relate to the simple truth that we have done things in our lives that are totally in alignment with who we are, our authenticity. And for whatever reason, we have chosen now to repress those things as well. And so it's
Mhm.
not just the stuff that makes us kind of go, God, I value honesty, and I'm not an honest person, and I don't like admitting I'm an honest person. Again, that's part of the shadow stuff. And again, it's just admitting
Yeah.
and making friends with, yeah, I don't live up to my standards. I can't meet my vision of my idealized self. So I'll
Mm.
rationalize and I'll justify and all this stuff as opposed to just admit it's like, yeah, guess what? For whatever reason, I don't know what it is right now. Yeah, I was lying right through my teeth trying to impress that person. And
Yeah.
I've done it. So that's why it's so easy it comes out of my mouth. But there's also things that are with us that, yeah, having this sense of again, just simple thing because we've been talking about bullies, standing up for those that are unable to speak for themselves, to be an advocate for those for whatever reason they can't do this, and for whatever reason we hold it back. Again, it's for myself. It's again insecurities because if I've just given you a little bit of this. I've just done this for 5 minutes, and you've once again put me back in my place and stuff, and it hurts. And again, somehow there's that same part of me that's concluded that it's not appropriate to be expressing publicly. You know, pushing through those moments of discomfort and going, no, I have to be true to myself, and I don't think that is appropriate behavior. And I will stand up whether somebody's speaking that way to me or to someone else. But I need to learn to do it in a more effective way as opposed to just swearing
Mhm.
and threatening or whatever kind of things that I do that are ineffective.
Yeah.
Um, and frankly, for myself, a big part of that is the question, which again, it's something I admire about you. You ask very good questions. Again, ask is trying to have a bit of equanimity about it, keeping my cool and letting you know the amygdala, working as opposed to the limbic brain, which again, if our listeners aren't familiar, the limbic brain, that's your fight or flight, your lizard brain and such. That's the part that all thinking goes through at one point in time. And the amygdala is the executive center where we can rationalize in a way that is much more objective, and choosing our words more appropriately might be a better way of saying this. So coming back to a way as opposed to trying to, like in the past, I'm going to put you in your place, going, why do you say that? And how would you, or these again, just one of my go-tos also is like, well, how would you feel if that happened to you, kind of stuff. And then just shutting up and let this person actually speak to themselves. Because nobody,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is this is a simple truth that I can't convince you of anything. At best, we can come to a point where I'm reminding you of your own truths. But when there is a thing called confirmation bias, we will only accept the information that we feel is true, and we reject everything else. So it's trying to help an individual get to that point where they're reminded of their own truths. And there is an internal compass inside of all of us. And there is a reason we come from a long strain of human beings that have been able to survive all kinds of adversities and such. Our great grandmother and grandfathers and stuff found a way to survive. And frankly, up until modern times and stuff, that was being in a collaborative manner. Everybody
Yep.
in that social order had to have a role that they fulfilled and made that community able to survive, if not grow and thrive. Otherwise, frankly, they would not have been allowed to exist in that community. You
Right.
know, things that we have in our modern days, such as welfare and social security, are not good or bad. It's just, again, it's relatively new concepts in society, kind of stuff. When we were in a place right there, again, the kids did things to help out the elders typically, while the men were either the hunters or gatherers, and the women were doing the roles that they were doing in the tribe. Everybody helped out unless there was the exception, because certainly having people that are affirmed, um, whether again it would be mentally or physically and such, the community typically understood. Most communities would recognize that there was still an inherent worth in that individual, and although that person may not be able to go out and I don't know, hunt the buffalo, maybe that person could gather firewood for their whatever it may be, you know. And again, this is so hypothetical. Who's to say in dynamics and stuff that those people weren't, I don't know, with insecurities in their own. But again, we came from a point of there, again, countless generations that was able to operate in a way that you were expressing to me, Mike. Again, to be able to be authentic and contribute and to be valued for whatever you're doing in the tribe. Okay. So was there a hierarchy? Yes, there was the chief, there was the medicine man, all that kind of stuff going on as well. But people understood there needed to be the person who was gathering the water. There needed to be the person who was, skinning, the chickens, or again, everybody had value, and it was needed. And unfortunately, we live in a world where that doesn't exist. And I guess we could go into all kinds of reasons why that isn't. But I believe, with my core and such, and that everybody has that built into their DNA because we come from a long ancestry of that. Again, if there was something in us that said, forget all that, I don't need all of you, I'm going off into make my own ways, I'm going to be a solo trapper and stuff, and I'll see you in 6 months after I get my skins and stuff. There's a very low probability those genes continued on in the order of things into the modern day. Most people were able to assimilate and to collaborate and contribute. And they were with the good, the bad, the ugly and stuff. We could do this. They worked out their problems. They had a social order and stuff because it meant for the survival of the tribe. You could not have an us versus them among your community, whether it was something, say, a small group of a dozen people or 1,000 people or whatever and such. The good of the tribe for that society there, that you had to address these problems and such. And again, it was inevitable because humans do have, their confrontations and such. But eventually there was a way of communicating, whether it was directly between the individuals or through, say, like the chief or the shaman or whatever, the elders. And when you come back to expressing, having feelings that authority wasn't there to be the peacemaker and the person in resolution, I've gone through this. See, again, it's just evident right now. Those that are in position of authority, whether it's in our government or if it's in our businesses and such, even in my case, in my family, my small unit of my father, and stuff, there was not an individual who was able to provide that. And I have this hypothesis: everything's out of whack. This is not the
Mm,
natural order. We are living in times where it's just not congruent with what humanity is utilized to get to the point where we are today. What that means from now, whether we're going to have a correction and we get back to the point where it's in tune to what you've been aspiring to do, Mike, I hope, frankly, because on the other hand, dog eat dog, everyone for himself kind of stuff. I got mine, too bad they took from yours kind of stuff. Greed is good. This things that are commonplace in America. That's just, again, if once it becomes no longer personal, and again, if you're listening to this and then again you have opposing views, again, that's natural that somebody's going to listen to this evidence here.
of course.
The ability to discuss those views, and again, not to win people over, but just again to have the ability to say I disagree and not look at you as an enemy, but just another person in the tribe who just disagrees. You're not an enemy. You're not a threat. You're just the person who I disagree with. And again, we don't necessarily have to be hugging to each other, but we don't have to be trying to destroy each other like it is so much today. I believe because America has, since World War II, has experienced such abundance where most people um, are relatively safe, kind of stuff. It's certainly not how it was pre-World War II. It's built into us of being able to assimilate and take care of ourselves. Um, to be able to discern who's friend or foe for survival. We've come to a point right now where just because you disagree with me, you're my enemy. And I've gone on this big long monologue, Mike, for me to again nod your head. But do you see how this is possibly, again, the scenario that I'm painting and stuff? These people are just have been conditioned to look at an individual who is not of the same worldview, doesn't see things the same way. Yes, you because you are different in your philosophy. Now you've become the enemy and you're the threat.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
doesn't have anything to, would it possibly therefore then be that it's not Mike that they're threatened by, it's the ideology they're threatened by.
yeah. When you grow up in under that cultural conditioning, where and I see it as, and this is not about pointing fingers or othering people. We talk about that a lot about othering. I mean, I do believe that we're all one, but it's that cultural conditioning that tells us that there has to be an enemy. We have to create an enemy. If you don't have an enemy, you must create one. I've followed enough. Uh, I've followed enough information about what what leaders are introduced to when they are made leaders, how to create war, how to make war. Business is an outgrowth of war strategy. That one of the major the first rule or the first law of war is that if you don't have an enemy, you must create one, and you must declare war on yourself or declare war on your lower nature. So all of a sudden, we got this spiritual ideology that evangelizes the warrior, uh, that evangelizes confrontation. So I don't know if that's going to be, if we're going to be able to reverse that overnight, but it happens one conversation at a time, just like that, just saying, well, let's just take a look at this, and is this still who we want to be? Is this do we want to destroy others to express our anger and to express our discontent, or do we want to direct that within, do the shadow work, and end poverty, end hunger, end war? I mean, that's not a choice no one person can make. I don't believe we're going to solve all the problems of the world, but we can make peace with our lower nature instead of waging war on it. And that's the first step. I think that's the first step. And that's something that I've been having a lot of conversations around quite a bit. Is that, we're looking at this potential economic model or this paradigm shift, and it's not about convincing people to come over to our side. It's about creating the environments where how do we make peace with ourselves? How do we make peace with what we think of as our lower nature? But it's really just those primal ancestral feelings coming up to the surface. And how do we find healthy creative outlets to be able to express that to each other without destroying each other, or without giving into the desire to destroy each other. So yeah, that's what comes up for me about that. About
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I did kind of start rambling and heard myself, but again, that you brought it up again. So I think the individuals that are feeling, I don't know, awkward when somebody's displaying a manner of, again, of wanting to be a peacemaker as opposed to a warmonger.
yeah,
Again, there's an innate part of them, again, in their ancestry that they come from a long line of peacemakers. Okay. Everybody, again, all cultures want resolution from war except those that are profiting from war, which again is a
yeah,
new thing. You know,
yeah,
um, God, I could go on this, and it'll be another rabbit trail. But again, World War II, because America was not destroyed like all the other major countries in the world and stuff, we had the resources to mm, become a world power that we have been. That all of us alive today and stuff is only known kind of stuff. But yeah, there was people that took advantage of the opportunity. Although there was Roosevelt, there was Churchill, there was Stalin, you know, all these allies that said, "Hey, guess what? We make it through this thing. We're going to make sure that we never ever have another world war, and we will find a way to stay at peace as long as we possibly can." And well, when FDR passed away and they put Truman in there, guess who put Truman in there? It was the industrialists, the Carnegies, the rock. Yeah, again, I'm going down this kind of stuff, but after World War II, America had the industrial war machine.
yeah,
War is very, very profitable for some people. And so if you think about the cost of things that are used in wars, bombs and airplanes and tanks and all that kind of stuff, these
yeah,
people, again, they get paid very well for this thing, and it gets destroyed, and somebody's got to make another one for them and stuff. It is again, it's a very, very profitable thing, and of course, this involves power as well too. So
yeah,
those that are in this situation of profiting from war, well, I mean, if you were making money selling sandwiches, okay, I want to sell a bunch of sandwiches. This is good. Well, again, they're making a lot of money with war. They want to perpetuate war, but it goes against the grain. Again, society, I think 99% of human beings would prefer not to have war in this world. And again, I'm speaking from the macro, but in the micro, also again in confrontations, I think most people would prefer getting along with each other. And
yeah,
even going down to the store, I think most people would prefer getting along with themselves, so that they didn't have the angel on one shoulder, and why this inner work is so important for us to be able to look at ourselves and not think that when we see that we're less than our idealized self, that we're defective, but we're human. And to understand that this comes from this conditioning we've been speaking about. We grew up in a society where A lot of the bullies, again, why did they bully others? Because they were bullied. Again, it was there. So maybe if we, again, one person at a time, we can do a contrary action as opposed to bullying. We show up with kindness and compassion and allowing people to be, I don't know what word to do it, but less than the idealized version of themselves as we see them, or they themselves, and just accept the humanness of each other. Perhaps one person at a time, that despite the warmongers and stuff that want us to fight against each other, those that are controlling the media, the propaganda that's going out that is trying to perpetuate because you see these problems, I am the one who can solve these problems. Let's work together. And those who disagree with us are the enemy and such. And they're profiting upon this us versus them. If we can stop and just realize that basically all of us see that there's huge problems that need to be addressed. And those that are perpetuating the problems are profiting them from more. So it isn't really us versus them. It's you and I against these types of problems. And my hypothesis is that those that keep saying they're going to fix the problems, why they keep perpetuating, they don't want them to end. But you and I and tens of millions of people do want them to end. And the way that will end is in these conversations you're conducting, Mike. So I commend you for not giving up, for being a creator of these conversations, continuing. And I think, again, as you pointed out at the beginning of our time together and stuff, those that do get it, it's great conversations. I'm vitalized by your, again, there's a vitality in the time again, if you kind of noticed where, again, I had to go and express myself. You just stirred full so
That's
much,
what
Mike.
that's what these living library conversations are for.
So
Absolutely, because it's not
hopefully,
about
again,
debate; it's about opening up. Yeah,
yeah, in closing what we've done here, hopefully the listeners can realize some things that if they've nodded their heads, that they're not alone. And together, if there's, again, I don't expect people to listen to this agree 100% with this, but if you do believe that the majority of people would like to get along, and that you'd like to be able to get along with yourself again, to have some little more peace of mind and to have a regulated nervous system, not to be triggered so much by people that are bringing up things that had been implanted during our childhood. We can work
yeah,
together as opposed to working against each other. The odds are going to improve that we get through this time of chaos and confusion. I can say I have friends on both political parties that are really, really scared about what the future is.
yeah,
We're going in uncharted waters, and yeah, you can't reflect back and say, well, this is just like when so and so happened. I mean, there's some people are grasping at straws, but it's
mm,
because we try to find some kind of thing reference to find, I don't know, some solid ground, some certainty. And so, but really, again, my point is everybody right now is on edge. And if we can just understand that, okay, because the topic that is expressing your concern and my topic are two different things, that doesn't change the fact that in our humanness, we want resolution. And the only way there's going to be resolution is to look people eye in the eye and listen, like you did for me today. So thank you for listening, Mike. You do it so.
thank you. So I will close with this as well too. If you, the watcher, the listener, enjoyed this conversation between myself and Randy, please consider watching the entire Natural Law and Regenerative Economy series. This is kind of what we discuss, and this is kind of how we get kind of like underneath the surface of kind of those power dynamics. And what that series will do is it'll just plant one seed per episode about how to change that infrastructure so that it's not about power over, but more sharing power with. So you can earn 20 hours just in watching and viewing that, and you can even take a course in that if you want to go deeper with that. Please reach out to me. Randy has been a major, kind of a major contributor to that conversation as well. Please reach out to Randy to kind of further the discussion about how these conversations start to change that financial infrastructure. So I'll leave that point there for now. But I'll also say, I'll ask you, Randy, before we close too. So if I wanted to take the next step in your program, what would that entail? So if someone watching this would like to kind of contribute to our journey together in support your efforts with easier ways, support your efforts with the model that you're creating, where do you and I go next? What would be our next step? If a sponsor stands up and say, yeah, I'd like to continue to support this effort.
Well, thank you for asking. So, yeah, in regards to being a benefactor or sponsor of this, there's two ways. One, tell people about it. Okay. And you don't fully need to know. Just know that there's this guy that you heard talk and you kind of like some of the stuff here. And then just tell people that I'm open to having conversations and listening to them. That I did predominantly with Mike and stuff. I just really, honestly, because so much of us go through the world feeling that we're not seen, not heard, not appreciated and stuff, the fact that somebody can listen to you and not try to fix you right there alone, that's going to make life a little bit easier for all of us alone. So that's there. But as the conversation happens, if there is something that indicates that it should be an ongoing there, yeah, I have a framework that's based upon the 12 steps of recovery. Um, Basically as opposed though to talking about, oh, I'm powerless and I cannot control my addiction and my life has become unmanageable. It just basically comes the word control being, I can't control people, places, and states. This is again, the Stoics said this long ago, the Buddhists as well too, and stuff. We understand what we can and cannot control, and that again, without trying to go through the whole 12-step process, but it's basically understanding these simple things. And again, it goes deeper than that. And if you want, I'll have a website together soon that lays this framework. So to be a benefactor, letting people know this, or if you would like to contribute financially, as Mike alluded. So having fixed operational costs like the website and the community, and as it grows, having people that are able to conduct these conversations, just supporting people. I can only do so much as this is growing. I want to be able to, I'm giving my time but I need to be able to pay people when they can show up and such. So there is need for financial advertising, again, when I'm talking about letting people know, that's organic, but actually doing paid ads to let people know more about this. So financially, whatever you can contribute, I'm selling t-shirts. T-shirts not your thing. Again, there's some people that just said, here's some money, send me $20 and such. Some have been much more generous and actually what I would call a scholarship. So that $300 to go through the 90-day program of the structure, would call that a scholarship. If you can contribute $300, that would be great. Great. Gee, I'll just say it. If you can do multiple scholarships, that would even be more great. Um, but yeah, this is really something that I have held back from because I don't know. Who am I to do something like this? I had my insecurities, these dreams, these desires, and I realized that until they became actions, and I went and I tried and I did the scary stuff and put myself out there, and I have suffered from the abandonment wound. I am inevitably going to have some people that dismiss it, make fun of me, criticize me and such. This is something though that I must bring out for me to have a fulfilled life. And I guess that's another thing about this is helping people see within themselves. It doesn't, again, whatever it is that brings fulfillment in your life and stuff, to look at not just the things that we saw as socially unacceptable that was, I don't know, rude, harmful, but also that the gifts that we have to give that we've been holding back. Lack of a better term, how we've been playing small. No, no, there are parts of us and stuff that are actually quite nurturing and life bringing that will make the world better, will make our lives better. And doing things that we are passionate about that are helping other people, again, it's hard still facing these hard, difficult challenges and stuff. But life is easier when we're in alignment with our that authentic selves. Mike demonstrates that. I'm hoping I can demonstrate that we are being true to ourselves and willing to take every now a punch in the face to do so because that's just what we have to do. And yeah, it hurts. Again, I have again. It is why I keep again. I get a punch in the face. What is Mike Tyson's fight? Everybody's got a plan so they get punched in the face. Yeah, it sucks getting punched in the face. But at 61 years old, I don't know how many more years I have left, but I do not want this to just die as wishful thinking. I'm bringing it forth. So if these words resonate with you, whether you've been somebody that's overcome these fears and actualized a business, whatever it may be, yeah, maybe I joked about making sandwiches. Yeah, maybe you've got a small business you're done and you could put this in a matter of your philanthropy. Help us do this, or again, tell people about it. Maybe if you can, among people on your teams, we could do it there. I have a dream for bringing this again because this affected me at a young age, and Mike expressed this as well. I have a dream to bringing this towards schools, whether they're public or private schools. And if this model does take traction, like I see the potential out of it is, of course there'll need to be adjustments and such. Having this to be something that winds up being incorporated in future generations during their developmental years. I know if I knew the nature of human behavior and living by certain principles and such, I would have made different choices in life. When I felt like an outsider, for somebody to go, of course you're an outsider, Randy. You're a strong individual, and you are again by you expressing yourself, you're causing things among these other people for them to push back. And again, the feeling you have is legitimate. You are not defective. You are a human being, and to allow, accept, embrace your humanness. So again, as you heard, this lights my fire. This is what I'm going to do until I draw my last breath. I'll probably trip over my own two shoestrings and stuff. But if you want to help me, I'll just say flat out, I can use all the help I can get. So again, thank you, Mike, for helping me express this.
Randy, yes, and you just reminded me as well too. We just launched a LinkedIn group for the Living Library. So for anybody who really wants to take this seriously and really want to look at the emerging business models around this as well, please look for us on LinkedIn. I'll put a link on that with this conversation on the Road Counselor blog. But thank you, Randy. I'm going to stop the recording now, and just a reminder to anyone who's watching this: you just spent an hour with us. Please consider becoming a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank, and you can claim this hour as a service provided. So thank you for watching.
Thank you.